What if the people you vote for aren't the ones actually in control? Behind every election, every policy, every headline, there may be a hidden network of power operating in the shadows. Not conspiracy theories, but real influence, real decisions, and real consequences you were never meant to see. Tonight, we are pulling back the curtain on what many call the deep state and asking one question: who's really running the show? The deep state, the hidden machinery of power. If you spend enough time online, you have probably heard the phrase deep state. It gets thrown around in political speeches, conspiracy forums, and late night debates, usually as a catch all explanation for why elected leaders seem unable to control the system they supposedly run. But what if there's real story buried beneath the paranoia? Not a secret cabal meeting in underground bunkers, but a sprawling network of intelligence agencies, military officials, and unelected bureaucrats whose influence can outlast presidents, shape foreign policy, and operate far beyond public scrutiny. To understand the deep state, we need to separate myth from history because the truth is both less dramatic and more unsettling. The birth of modern intelligence apparatus. Before World War II, the United States didn't have a permanent centralized intelligence agency. That changed with the creation of the OSS, the Office of Strategic Service, led by Bill Donovan. The OSS became America's wartime intelligence arm, pioneering espionage, sabotage, and covert operations. After the war, the OSS was dissolved, but its mission wasn't. In 1945, the CIA was born officially. Its purpose was intelligence gathering. Unofficially, it quickly became something much bigger. The CIA began orchestrating coups abroad, manipulating foreign elections, and running covert operations with little public awareness. Western countries have often been accused of contributing to instability in Africa through a mix of historical exploitation, political interference, economic control, and military involvement. It's a complex issue.
He accept defeat. If to say no accept defeat, the kind calls where he gets alone, in fact, they for kill him. Jonathan, who the president they fear. Aside Jonathan, Jesus. When IBB write in book, when him they confess of some things, when they admit that truly Abiola won the election. Now, IBB been confessed. Say, if to say him no annul June 12th election, then for kill him. Who be those people? Apart from that, your president, Presido, here waiting Hajia talk. When they interview Hajia, make we hear him.
What you called me? He says, Hajia, I said, sir. He said, I respect your stance on not accepting the appointment. I said, yes, sir. Because I can't be a zombie. I just can't follow you because you said I should follow you. Let me know what you have for us up north. And we sat. And I said, sir, the reason why I'm not accepting your appointment is because I don't know what you have for us up north. Because in the north, every single person is either waiting to be killed or kidnapped. We can't go on like this. What is your blueprint for us? He told me that he doesn't have anything for us. I said, you mean, sir, you don't have a blueprint? He said, I can't have a blueprint because if I have a blueprint, I'll be stepping on too many toes and they might even kill me. This was what he said.
Is there another power apart from the highest authority of power will be the president for this our Nigeria? Nigerians, I beg. Now which people they rule this country? He get an
Africa's challenges are also shaped by internal governance issues, but here are some major ways Western powers have played a role. Belgium and Portugal colonized African territories, often drawing artificial borders that ignore ethnic and cultural realities, favoring some ethnic groups over others, extracting resources while neglecting development. These colonial structures laid the foundation for ethnic conflicts, weak institutions, and dependency after independence. For example, in Rwanda, colonial policies deepened divisions between Hutu and Tutsi communities, contributing to Rwandan genocide. Backing coups and dictators during Cold War, Western powers often supported authoritarian leaders
Now,
if they
here come
protected
the
Western
question.
interests or
Who is
opposed
running
communism.
the
For
government
example,
affairs in Nigeria
Mobutu
and in
Sese
many
Seko
African
in
countries?
Democratic Republic of Congo received Western backing
Africa
despite
was a
corruption.
free society
Muammar Gaddafi was
before
overthrown after NATO
invasion.
intervention in Libya, leaving instability. This often weakened democratic institutions and empowered repressive regimes. Resource exploitation. Western multinational companies extract oil, minerals, and other resources, sometimes in ways that fuel corruption, empower armed groups, create inequality, encourage foreign meddling. For example, oil in Nigeria, cobalt in Democratic Republic of Congo. Companies like Shell plc and others have been criticized for benefiting elites while local communities suffer environmental and economic harm. Before the European and Arab invasion of Africa, Africans lived in a free society, a communist system that benefits all Africans. Now, listen to what happened to many African communists, those who think the people of Africa's interests should be served, and how they all ended. Thomas Sankara from Burkina Faso was assassinated in 1987, a revolutionary leader who just rejected IMF loans and promoted national self-reliance. He was killed in a coup orchestrated by internal forces with alleged backing from foreign powers. Amfilcar Cabral from Guinea-Bissau was assassinated in 1973. He led the liberation struggle against Portuguese. Betrayed from within, his killing was linked to colonial agents seeking to weaken the movement. In 1969, as the founder of Frelimo, he led the fight for the independence. He was killed by a parcel of bomb believed to be planted by Portuguese Secret Service. Felix Roland Momie from Cameroon was assassinated in 1960, a major voice against French colonialism. He was poisoned by French secret agents in Switzerland while in exile. Samora Machel from Mozambique died in 1986 under suspicious circumstances. As president, he opposed apartheid and Western imperialism. His plane crashed near the South African border. Many believe it was a sabotage. Steve Biko from South Africa was assassinated in 1977, a leader of the Black Consciousness movement. He was arrested and brutally beaten to death by apartheid police for challenging white supremacy.
Welcome inside MI6. This iconic building, familiar to movie fans everywhere, is the home of Britain's Foreign Intelligence Service. But whilst hundreds of my team pass through the entry pods every day, the truth is that most of our work happens many miles away from this place, out of sight, hidden from the world, undercover, recruiting and running agents who choose to place their trust in us, sharing secrets to make the UK and the world safer. You might pass one of our officers on the streets or sit next to them on a plane when you're about to set off on an adventure of your own, or in a foreign city taking selfies by the sights. Whether it's in seemingly everyday places or on the front line embedded with our military, MI6 is there. In my first few weeks, I've heard repeatedly that MI6 is trusted and respected globally, two things that we never take for granted. We are seen as a source of hard power, soft influence, and rapid innovation. I've also heard that people want to believe in MI6. It's my job to make sure they can.
Although, as the Daily Telegraph joked, it was London's worst kept secret.
Listen to Harold Smith as he explained the political manipulation by the British in Nigeria.
This is something we have looked forward to for such a long time, and we are so happy to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Harold Smith was a young, bright, and principled Oxford University graduate who was recruited by the colonial office and posted to Nigeria. He took his final examination a year ahead of his class. He also married Mrs. Carol Smith, whom he met while they were both at Oxford University. Together they went to Nigeria, where they had their 2 children. Mr. Harold Smith, you were featured in a program recently by BBC Radio 4,
Yes.
titled Document,
Yes.
and that was hosted by Mr. Mike Thompson.
Yes.
You were alleged that the British government rigged the first and most important election in the history of Nigeria in 1959 in favor of the North. Am I correct?
Yes.
How long were you in Nigeria for?
From 1955 to 1960. And we were based in Lagos. I was on the staff of the Department of Labour. I was largely occupied with employment problems, all the employment exchanges, and statistics, and international reports, and was kept pretty busy. To stay and work for government. Primarily this was because I had access to state secrets. I learned, and the Governor-General himself confirmed this to me, that the elections were rigged, contrived. The intention was that the North should rule Nigeria. Even in '56, the Northern leaders were very proud and were saying, if they couldn't run Nigeria, never mind elections. They might not join Nigeria. They might leave. And we all thought, well, how would they survive? There were no industries. There's not a great deal of agriculture, some groundnuts in the north. This wasn't very practical at all. And then it was, the Governor-General seemed to be thinking that the North couldn't, even if it won an election, rule Nigeria by itself. The South wouldn't stand for that. So there had to be a partner, either the Igbos in the east or the Yoruba in the west, to team up with the North. What he didn't want was for the 2 southern parties, the Igbo and the Yoruba, to team up to form the government, because he believed the North wouldn't tolerate that and talked about leaving the federation. So as I learned, in a small way at first, but very rapidly I learned about the election fixing, and as I say, this was confirmed to me by the Governor-General. He actually said that he wanted me to know the truth because he wanted me to know how much trouble I was in.
You mentioned statistics. You were collecting figures.
Yes.
Is that for labor and unemployed people only, or general?
Primarily, but obviously my interest was in the population
Of
generally.
Nigeria?
Yes. And Awolowo, the Yoruba leader of the action group,
Yep.
and Chief Enaharo, they too, other people were saying, where are all these millions of people in the north? Where are they? We're going up there to campaign. We want to know, you know. And you see all these, you know, thousands of miles of not very developed countryside, and yet the northerners are claiming that their voting registration figures are larger than in the south, you know, larger, far more people up there. Well, actually, if you went through the Igbo land, you know, Enugu and that, you saw lots and lots of people. If you went to Ibadan, again, Ibadan teeming, you know, with millions of people. But we didn't actually see many northerners, and obviously not many northerners at that time came to Lagos. So this did arouse suspicion. Now, the Europeans, you know, not stupid, we are watching what's going on in Nigeria, and we too are beginning to feel there's something not quite right here, that maybe the elections are not going to be as straightforward as they're meant to be. Nigeria was being described as the showcase of democracy, and it was expected that the nationalist leaders would win through. But actually, when the election results were announced by the Governor-General, before the vote was even in, he didn't vote, didn't count for that, he didn't wait for that. I have to tell you, the British were counting the votes, and the British cannot be trusted. They look after their friends. Loyalty is the big thing for the British. And we were friends with the emirs of the north. We looked on people like Inaharo and Awolowo as rather dangerous people. They might even be communists. That's ridiculous, actually. They couldn't be communists in 1,000 years. But this was a sort of thing that was being said. And we were, Europeans, were getting a bit worried about all this. It wasn't quite the honest, straightforward election that we were hoping for.
Now, if you recall what you said about the role of the Governor-General and the attitude of the British government in particular, regarding the fear that Awolowo, Okutebo, and the lot of them from the south are dangerous. Is there a particular reason? Why the fear from the British government? Is it that they don't want to release or relinquish Nigeria? They still want to control Nigeria?
They knew that the North would do as they said after independence. If it had any, the North would just, because it was their habit, they liked the British, whereas the nationalists were an unknown factor. Actually, when they took the flag down and hoisted the Nigerian flag, not one of the major nationalist politicians was there. They weren't even on the platform. This was incredible. These were the people who had sought independence. The people in the north didn't want independence. They didn't want the British to leave. So this was a farce. And for most Europeans who were very close and watching this, we were disgusted. We thought this really had been manipulated, this election. It was unworthy. It was unworthy of the British people, this. This was no honest, straightforward thing that you would expect Britain, the mother of parliaments, to do. This was cheap and low and criminal. And I opposed it. And I opposed it then, and I've opposed it ever since. And I'm telling you the truth. And I was warned, if I told you this state secret, my life could be forfeit.
Earlier on, you said the British government wanted the North in alliance with either of the southern region, either with the Yorubas or with the Igbos.
But Awolowo,
without which they cannot
they can't do it
rule the country.
The problem was that Awolowo was a highly principled man.
Okay.
You didn't talk to Awolowo about squalid deals and fixing things. Awolowo was not that kind of person. If you read his books, this man was a world statesman. And his young lieutenant, Chief Enaharo, was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. However, They did do a deal with Zik, Dr. Azikiwe, from the East. Dr. Azikiwe, there was this big problem in Nigeria. It's the same big problem in America and in Britain. How do you get funds to fight elections? The candidates in Nigeria had no money, but they did have marketing boards, which were a kind of semi-nationalized industry. And they borrowed money from the marketing boards. But there was a suspicion that Dr. Azikiwe, who had formed his own bank, the African Continental Bank, was actually bankrupt. But he was borrowing very large sums of money from the marketing boards and not necessarily repaying the loans. We knew this. We had a great secret service. All the politicians' phones were tapped. All the politicians' mail was opened. Everything that any major politician did in Nigeria, we knew in hours. We watched. We knew all that was going on.
Are you saying, in essence, that Dr. Azikiwe took money?
He was blackmailed by the British to do our bidding. We told Dr. Azikiwe that he could go to prison if an inquiry was carried out into his bank and his financial circumstances. However, we would not want to be vindictive if Dr. Azikiwe was cooperative in helping forward the plans that we had made in the best interests of Nigeria. Dr. Azikiwe had nothing in common with the northern politicians. He loathed the northern politicians. But Dr. Azikiwe went north and did as he was told. And what he was promised was this: the real power, effective power, would be in the hands of the northern emirs. However, it would look great if the president was Dr. Azikiwe and he was given a field marshal's uniform and an admiral's uniform. He asked, please, could he have a row of medals? But they said, well, no, that was a bit difficult, to get the medals. So when the ambassadors started arriving, he was known to be asking people from foreign countries, perhaps they had a medal for his uniform. We thought this was terrible, but it was said that this happened. He was very vain. And for a time, he functioned as first the Governor General, and then when Nigeria became a republic, as the president. But he had no power. And when he did try to tell the army, he said, I'm the field marshal, the army has got to do this. They said, hey, you're just a ceremonial figure. You have no power. The Prime Minister, Balewa, gives us our orders. So there was a feeling then that there was going to be trouble.
Also, listen to Sister Beina Bello as she explained the fake independence Nigeria got from the British.
We cannot have black people enslaved or colonized, and then when we're free, we say, oh, our colonizers are our best friends. They teach us the laws we should have in the books. We're going to take their books to have the schools. We're going to take their doctors to come and build our hospitals. Why the hell then why don't you just stay in slavery or stay in colonization? We have an example, Nigeria. Powerful land, variety in climate. Nigeria has everything to win as a black country. When Nigeria was becoming, and the crackers really didn't want to give Nigeria up. They did not, because Nigeria was too much wealth, too much of everything. And it had a very dynamic personality, the people of Nigeria. When you read the Constitution of Nigeria, you can hardly tell this is a black nation. But furthermore, the accompanying agreements, Nigerians agreed to live in the hands of England. The educational system, the justice system, the finance system, and the resources. So here we are independent. Here's how it went in Nigeria. We are independent. Hooray! Independence! Wonderful. But England will determine what you do as far as education is concerned, will determine how money is spent and for what, will determine how resources are used, and will determine justice.
Listen to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu as he explained what happened between Gowon and Ojukwu, which is the result of the British meddling, which later resulted into a war between the Nigeria and Biafra people.
War. Gowon is alive. Go and ask him. Did Ojukwu cause any war? Ojukwu went and negotiated restructuring with you in Aburi. You came back. Britain told you not to agree because Britain realized that all the component units of Britain knows that if you go back to regionalism, you will have economic growth. The country will do very well. But Britain doesn't want it. That was why they even instigated the Nzogbu coup, so-called Nzogbu coup, saying they will bring Awolowo to become the head of state. They knew what was going to happen. They wanted to truncate the economic miracle of Dr. Michael Opara. What I'm telling you are fast. Go and investigate for yourself. In the East, you had the fastest growing economy in the whole world, over 40% every year. In the West, Awolowo was performing his own miracle as well. Even in the North, Ahmadu Bello and Tafawa Balewa were doing very well. You had all those massive industries in the North. You even had Alamajiris that were employed in the North, meaningfully employed, gainfully employed. They were all doing very well. Britain said, no, for us to control these people, we need to impoverish them. Let us introduce this war. There was a coup by Nzogbu. And after that, there was the massacre of, as usual, massacre of our people in the North. Ojukwu said, I have to secure my land and my people. They said, no, let's go to Aburi to discuss it. Ojukwu went to Aburi and agreed restructuring. That's something now you're asking for, to tell you how foolish Nigerians are. They're very foolish. That same nonsense you're asking for now was discussed many years ago. Ojukwu sat down in Aburi with Gowon and decided that regionalism was the best way forward, restructuring, going back to who you were, 1963 Constitution, 1963 Constitution. Be on your own and pay tax to the central government, as they have in America, as they have even in Britain. Britain, you have Scotland that is almost independent, Wales, the same thing, everybody is free, but Britain doesn't want the same thing they're enjoying to happen in Nigeria. Why? Ask yourself that question. Anybody telling you about one Nigeria is your enemy. I'll prove it to you now. Ojukwu negotiated devolution, regionalism. The North will be on their own, the West on their own, even Midwest on their own, and then the East on their own. It's the same one Nigeria. On their way to the airport, before they boarded the aircraft, a call came from Lagos, from the British High Commissioner in Lagos to Gowon, telling Gowon not to agree. After having signed the agreement, that same Gowon you're looking at today, God kept him alive so that he can witness the destruction he will bring upon that very zoo called Nigeria. Gowon said no. Do you know all the journalists in Nigeria, none of them have ever gone to Gowon to ask him, why did he say no to Aburi? Aburi was restructuring. None of those agitating for restructuring right now has ever gone to Gowon or gone to Nigeria to say, but Ojukwu negotiated restructuring. What happened? They came back and they said no. Ojukwu said, okay, so you want to continue to kill my people all over the place? No. Because of that, I'll declare Biafra. Today, they have brainwashed all of you with the perverse notion and thinking that somehow Ojukwu is responsible for causing a war, when opposite is the case. If not now, that after many years of hammering on this very topic, it has now sunk into the skull of the people that Gowon was the aggressor, not Ojukwu. That's how Nigeria is.
always blaming the victim. And we lost over 5 million people during that very genocidal war. They killed over 5 million Biafrans. They wanted to wipe us away from the face of this very earth. But we survived it, and we are here today. Those they gave birth to, they have come. And this time with a wrath that you cannot even begin to imagine.
But today, from Gowon's explanation, he says the Igbo weren't responsible for the coup.
And I think it is the fear of the major fear of political domination was really what brought about the coup of 1966, which seemed to be one-sided. And it's mainly the northern leadership, both in the political as well as military, that were eliminated, and that engendered the crisis. Now, it was because Ojukwu or the East felt that after what happened in January and July, and a lot of the killings in September, in August, September, October, and subsequently, that the Igbos had to run to their own particular area. And I know that I had to even make sure that the soldiers separated, for a while. Otherwise, you never know what will happen. The animosity if they are within the same barracks. So I had to allow them to go back to their domain. Now it was, when Ojukwu, the East, felt that they have no, because of what has happened, they have no further stake in the country. They decided they wanted to break away from the country. Now, that was really what brought about the civil war. And of course, I said, as a soldier, I'm supposed to defend my nation. And now, as a head of state, I cannot allow the nation to break up. Like Winston Churchill said that he was not made prime minister to preside over the dissolution of the empire when India was wanted to become independent. So that was the point, and I decided that we should not. I should not allow Nigeria to break away. We will not allow any part to secede. Now, of course, Ojukwu wanted, if he succeeded, yes, with the oil, the major oil is in his own part of the country. At that time, is in the eastern part of the country. Yes, in fact, he would be independent. He would be financially robust, and then who knows? He might probably go even beyond that to start reconquering the rest of the country, so that he can be the president of the country. So the oil is not the.
Now let's listen to Major Hamza Al-Mustafa as he explained the exploitation of mineral resources in the northern Nigeria.
The need to run Nigeria became an issue. Salary payment was difficult. Then Libyan government, along with Germany, decided to utilize a satellite from a private satellite company that has shares of government of Germany in it. They discovered uranium in abundance and in high quality, well spread in Niger. Out of curiosity, that leader and other leaders decided to say, scratch part of Nigeria and let's take a look. They were shocked with what they discovered. In Northeast, they discovered a portion, and that portion in part of Zambeza leading to Lake Chad. What was deposited there, this is not hearsay. I was in Libya, I was in attendance along with Nigeria's ambassador, two of us allowed, then he was later told to go, and I was left alone along with the Libyan leader and the German company and the owners of the satellite. What was kept there was capable of producing 10 Dubais, 1996, You can quote me in the eyes of this world. Mustafa said so. I'm not into rhetorics. I love this country. I stand for this country. We are already targeted and hated by numerous forces. But if that is what they should do for us rendering service to Nigeria, then definitely they have not started. What we discovered at that material time was a shocker. So I asked questions as if I didn't understood what they were saying. The Libyan leader then, may so rest in peace, said, and I quote, I mean, what is in this place is enough for you to produce 10 Dubais, 1996. The product of this satellite was brought to Nigerian head of state by me. I brought the 2 metallic boxes. Where is it? Who took it? What happened? Where is the money? Now hold on. What might interest you is what I'm going to say. Nigeria is poor. Your industries are dead. But hear this. 1999, November 1st, I was in prison. They came to meet me in prison. And they asked me numerous questions on the way we were managing some certain things about Nigeria. I wouldn't want to mention. They mentioned some names and commanders they required to do some certain jobs for them. But the question I asked is, was it for Nigeria? At the end of the day, to cut the story short, is to tell you that Boko Haram was a calculated game. No, I'm begging you, see, I want us to listen with patriotism as Nigerians, because when hopelessness confronts a person who is thirsty, unknown to him, he is standing on an oasis. He is dying of thirsty. He is looking for water and busy praying. But the senses to dig the water and then come back alive is the problem of Nigeria. You are rich, you have it, you are scavenging for it. Most unfortunately. Now, from that time till now is 23 years. People might not tell you this, I'm telling you. I'm ready to be accused, abused, it doesn't matter. I am here. Precious stone has been what they have been taken. Boko Haram were our sons and daughters given a wrong indoctrination. Taking opium from Afghanistan, the hashish in the world, mixing same with a certain chemical. When they dip a date in it, and then after 4 hours, whosoever takes it becomes a robot. You are totally robotic. You will respond to orders. You will not feel pain. You will not think. You will not reason. They kill numerous soldiers, many widows in Bar.
The MK Ultra mind control.
Refugees scattered around Nigeria. Is labor aware? Keep that aside. It's the social ills created for Nigeria and Nigerians. What you may ask yourself is, how much of this real stone have they taken in 23 years? What has it contributed to Nigeria's growth? Did they build one single textile with the money? Who are the Nigerians collabing with their external factors? When did it start and how many regimes work with them? Can you even quantify the number of officers, soldiers killed, traditional rulers? Can you quantify the friction created between Muslims and Christians? When a bomb is lodged in a church, they will quickly write in the paper the next day, it was Mosque A that did it, and vice versa. They bomb the mosque and blame the church. It's not true. It's a game. So that when you fight yourself, when confusion keeps you aside, they are busy taking what you have. But you sit down. You see, you sit down and look at newspapers and you believe in it. No, there are numerous respected journalists who are highly patriotic.
Is a unified force deeply embedded in the republic that has its own agenda and the means to undermine the decisions of elected presidents and members of Congress. Its power derives from the control of the mechanisms of power and being invisible. Synonym, shadow level.
One may ask, in Borno State, There is Boko Haram. There are areas that are still mined, now no-go area. The weather is harsh. It's very unfriendly. It's a small place. But there is something the international community with the connivance of Nigeria. Every day you have NGOs
coming into,
and they are hiring houses from 10 years, 20 years and above. And once you give them the price, they don't ask, they just pay. What are they doing? Why are most of them coming with satellite telephones? Why are most of them coming with PCs that are working with the same satellite telephones?
Computers that are working directly with satellite.
How come most of them come under the guise of supportive activities to the poor? They are giving them medication. Did the Ministry of Health bother to discover the type of medicine they are giving to the poor? How come there is increase in kidney and cancer, kidney and liver and cancer problems in Borno? How come it is attacking old people? How come the NGOs live in the wee hours of the night where soldiers dread to go? Police, security men cannot go. They go there at odd hours. They go with cash, bags of money. And then they come back empty with smaller bags in their hands. What is in these smaller bags? Who is giving them that? What started the Boko Haram? Are the elites aware? Is the government aware? Who within the agencies and ministries of Nigeria are compromising that? Who is aiding these activities? How much of this californium do they take per day? How much is a gram of californium in world market today? Who has Google to know? 27,100,000 per gram. $1 million. I didn't say naira. Yes, it's the most expensive thing.
Do we have it in Nigeria?
In abundance in Borno State. That's what started the Boko Haram. That's the game. Are we aware? How can we be ignorant of our country, of our place, of what God has given to us? If we don't know your country, what type of leadership are you coming to give? You are a liability if you don't know. 1996. And one of the offenses we committed to some big men is getting to know this. We were tagged enemies, and it should not be known. 1996, I was tagged. Remember, at that time, there was the first campaign against me in Concord newspaper, front page, the Iron Man behind Abacha. That was the beginning on how to destroy me. And all for Nigeria. And I'm doing it for our well-being. If you sit down and say Kuwait is rich, how can we be seeing our relations, our parents? Whosoever you are, a mother is a mother. You see mothers carrying wood. And that's your mother. If you laugh at her because she's poor, she's your mother. You see an uncle trekking, some without shoes into the farm, toiling the soil. That's your father. It doesn't matter which part of Nigeria he comes from. It doesn't matter whether he's a Muslim or Christian. These are our parents. How can we have these riches and be seeing poverty all around us and we think we're comfortable? What am I going to tell God Almighty? I'm a deceit, I'm a liar. It is better I offend any person in telling him the truth and standing by it than to offend God Almighty. That's the way some of us are. That's why we're not friendly with some of them.
Deep state is a conspiracy theory it's defined as the people within the U.S. government and military who are in secret control of government policy.
Is this evidence to support that a deep state does exist?
Not long ago, if you mentioned the deep state, many would call you a conspiracy theorist. Now we are discussing how strong it is.
I've been tweeting about the so-called deep state, which is a conspiracy theory that government employees loyal to...
That a deep state, Clinton-Obama loyalist group would do everything they can to sink the president.
And made it the administrative state, the deep state.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington.
Here come foreign intervention. The former president of America, President Barack Obama, calling for the unity of Nigeria.
To keep Nigeria one is a task that must be done. Today I urge all Nigerians, from all religions, all ethnic groups, and all regions, to come together and keep Nigeria one.
And Islamize you. And they make you to pay Jizya. Or kill you, or convert you. How do you live with such a people? I've said it before, I've said it again. One Nigeria is a scam. There's nothing like one Nigeria. Anywhere you have one Nigeria, it's a means to scam you. There is no one Nigeria. We are never one. We have never been one. Otherwise, what does a man from Enugu have to do a man in Zamfara? What do you have in common? It's a function of the unholy marriage of the British that brought us together for people to be killed for resource control. How long will this continue?
In her book, Dr. Susan Williams explained the white supremacist agenda and influence in Africa. Listen to her interview.
And they were explicit about it. We need to have control and maintain control over these minerals. And of course, geographically, Democratic Republic of the Congo is sort of at the center of Africa. And so it seemed very crucial for Americans to the US state to maintain control of this uranium.
So yeah, I won't share my talk about, and at some point, about the CIA's approach to African nationalism in general, and to Kwame Nkrumah in particular. But the main focus of the book, and the crux of it, is Congo, and how the CIA begins to be involved in Congo, and how the CIA ends up pursuing a particular set of goals to keep that uranium safely under the control, not of a colony, but of a friendly government, as opposed to where it thinks Lumumba might lead the Congo. Can you walk us through that a little bit? How does the CIA think about Lumumba? How does the CIA come to view the political situation in Congo? And can you talk a little bit about the steps to which the CIA goes to ensure the outcome that they see as in American national interest?
Okay, going on in Congo and Ghana and, of course, Angola later on, were proxy wars, in a sense, arguably. But from the point of view of the Pan-Africanist leaders like Nkrumah, Lumumba, Kaunda, the evil was not the Soviet Union. The evil was white supremacy, racism, the apartheid that was developing profoundly and deeply, which you've written about, so the resistance to it so powerfully. That was the big evil and was devastating their lives and their families' lives and their future. That was the big evil to fight against. And Nkrumah actually said in 1960, at all costs, we need to make sure we do not participate the Cold War. But what he didn't understand then, but he did later, was that from the point of view of the US government, you're either with us or you're against us. And when the US decided Nkrumah was against us, then that was it for Nkrumah, really, and also with Lumumba. And but I can see, certainly in different ways, in different styles, the US and the Soviets did some similar things. And Wole Soyinka, who was enormously sponsored by the CIA, and when he found out in the mid-1960s that so much of the conferences he'd attended to, the publishers who'd published him, it's very extensive, had been the CIA, he was incredibly upset. And he referred to the CIA as the devil incarnate. He referred to the reptilian coils of the CIA, identifying the spider's web of CIA influence, if you like, so soft power, assassinations, and the Soviets were also printing material, working on the Manhattan Project, and it was a Russian spy. And he had, on the day that the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, he gave some secrets and some uranium even to his Soviet handler. Anyway, he was found out and put in prison, I think, for 5 years. And then he was invited by Nkrumah to come and participate in the teaching of the next generation at the university. And he went, and the US was really upset about this, and the UK wasn't happy either, but was unable to stop it. When when Nkrumah was overthrown in a coup that was heavily backed by the CIA in 1966, a coup that was called Operation Cold Chop. The British sent, after that, and then Nkrumah went into exile, the British sent over a very well-known physicist, atomic physicist, who did a study of what should happen. And surprisingly, he decided it had to be closed down, which really upset the Ghanaian physicists who were so much hoping it would continue. So that's what happened in Ghana. Meanwhile, in what was the Belgian Congo, there was an atomic reactor that had been sent by the US government. The US government, to say thank you to Belgium for Belgian ore, which of course came from the Congo, enabled a reactor in Belgium and also sent one to the Belgian Congo. And that was in 1958, and the TRICO. And it was made critical in 1959. And because at that point still nobody realized that, or guessed, that the Congo would be independent the following year. They just weren't prepared for that at all. They just weren't prepared for that at all. So this reactor went critical, and just after independence, Larry Devlin, the CIA chief of station, was instructed from the US to go and take off the rods. And he said, "You must be joking." And spoke to someone who was in the know and said, "You must be joking." So he didn't do that, and it just got left. But there was a concern by the US that there was this reactor in Leopoldville, now Kinshasa, and the US helped to get rid of, and the Western powers helped to get rid of the building of the atomic reactor in Ghana. Meanwhile, the US was assisting apartheid South Africa with the building of an atomic reactor. I think it's the Safari, and was doing all it could to assist that. And there does seem to be, well, there is, and this is reflected in the language that's used in the documentation, that it was considered dangerous for anything atomic to be in the hands of people with a black skin. It was as simple as that.
In explaining the game of powers, we have Professor John Meashema and Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Listen to what they have to say about the game of power and the deep states.
He's vowed that if he gets elected this time, it will be different, and he will beat back the deep state. He will pursue a foreign policy that's fundamentally different than Republicans and Democrats have pursued up to now. And the big question on the table is whether or not you think Trump can beat the deep state and these two established parties. And I'd bet against Trump. John? Yeah, I'll say a few words about it. When we talk about the deep state, we're talking really about the administrative state. It's very important to understand that starting in the late 19th, early 20th century, given developments in the American economy, it was imperative that we develop, and this was true of all Western countries, a very powerful central state that could run the country. And over time, that state has grown in power. And since World War II, the United States, as you all know, has been involved in every nook and cranny of the world, fighting wars here, there, and everywhere. And to do that, you need a very powerful administrative state that can help manage that foreign policy. But in the process, what happens is you get all of these high-level bureaucrats, middle-level and low-level bureaucrats who become established in positions in the Pentagon, the State Department, the intelligence community, you name it. And they end up having a vested interest in pursuing a particular foreign policy. And the particular foreign policy that they like to pursue is the one that the Democrats and the Republicans are pushing. And that's why we talk about Tweedledee and Tweedledum with regard to the two parties. You could throw in the deep state as being on the same page as those other two. It's also very important to understand that the United States is a fundamentally liberal country, and we believe that we have a right we have a responsibility and we have the power to run around the world and remake the world in America's image. Most people in the foreign policy establishment, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, they believe that. And that is what has motivated our foreign policy in large part since the Cold War ended. Because remember, when the Cold War ends, we have no rival great power left. So what are we going to do with all this power that we have? What we decide to do is go out and remake the world in our own image.
So that's a values point of care about the other places. They may feel we should be whatever we want, free and so forth, but freedom, I've seen with my own eyes the coups, the overthrows, the presidents, Democratic presidents led away. They don't care at all. This is Washington. Be a realist. Come on. Clarify a few things. Look, first of all, almost all the time that we intervene, it's because we view this as a power situation for the U.S. So whether it's Ukraine or Syria or Libya or other places, even if we define it as defending something, believe me, it's not about defending something. It's about a perception of U.S. power and U.S. interest, and it's in objectives of U.S. global hegemony. And if we analyze the Ukraine conflict just even a little bit below the surface, this is not a conflict about Putin invading Ukraine. This is something a lot different that has to do with American power projection into the former Soviet Union. So it's completely different. Second, if we decide we're the police, which we do, you can't imagine how cynical bullshit we use to justify our actions. We used the cynical bullshit that we're defending the people of Benghazi to bomb the hell out of Libya to kill Muammar Gaddafi. Why did we do that? Well, I'm kind of an expert on that region, and I can tell you, maybe because Sarkozy didn't like Gaddafi. There's no much deeper reason, except Hillary liked every bombing she could get her hands on. And Obama was kind of convinced. My Secretary of State says, go with it, so why don't we go with it?
Wow. Unconfirmed. Yeah. Yeah. Unconfirmed reports about Gaddafi being captured. Unconfirmed. Yeah. We've had too many. We've had a bunch of those before. We've had, have had. We came, we saw, he died. Did it have anything to do with your visit?
Go with it. So why don't we go with the NATO expedition? It had nothing to do with Libya. It unleashed 15 years of chaos, cheated the UN Security Council, because like everything else we've done, it was on false pretenses. We did the same with trying to overthrow Syria. We did the same with conspiring to overthrow Viktor Yanukovych in Ukraine in February 2014. So the problem with this argument is we're not nice guys. We're not trying to save the world. We're not trying to make democracies. We had a committee, by the way, of all the luminaries you could mention, but they're the neocon crazies, but they're luminaries. The Committee for the People of Chechnya. Are you kidding? Do you think that we're defending real things? If you want to defend real things, go to the UN Security Council and convince others, because the other countries are not crazy and they don't want mayhem in the world. But we play games, so they say, that's a game, Iraq, which was obviously a game before we went in. It was obviously Colin Powell could not move his lips without lying that day. Obviously. And so they said no. But if we're real about our interests, then you go to the UN Security Council, and then it's not just on us. It's actually then a collective security issue. Russia to support a jihadist movement inside Russia to do. This is a game. But it's the game that John has described better than anyone in the world. It's a game of power. It's not that we're defending real things. If you want to defend real things, go to the UN Security Council and convince others, because the other countries are not crazy. Some game. We all agree on that. I believe that security doesn't have to be a zero-sum game either. We can stay a little bit away from each other, and China does not spend its time bemoaning America being a Western Hemisphere hegemon. They don't. That's not their greatest interest, to bring down American power in the Western Hemisphere.
Jeff, what about
why they had to occupy Haiti? Oh, no. The trouble, so much coup d'etats and too many killings of officials and too much trouble in the country. That's why the U.S. had to occupy Haiti. But here's what the U.S. did. When they came in the first time, they occupied Haiti. First, they changed all the worthwhile laws from the books. Haiti was the only country at that time who did not have their money backed in the Americas, backed by the dollar. Our money was backed by gold. Our entire reserve, gold reserve, was taken away for safekeeping, we were told, and brought to Fort Knox. It has yet to return home. This was 1915. When somebody asks you, why is there so much poverty? When some white person says, oh, I want to go help the poor people in Haiti, so I'm going to bring a little bread and a little water for them. Ask them, why don't you just ask your government to give them back their gold? We cannot have black people enslaved or colonized, and then when we're free, we say, oh, our colonizers are our best friends. They teach us the laws we should have in the books. We're going to take their books to have the schools. We're going to take their doctors to come and build our hospitals. Why the hell then why don't you just stay in slavery or stay in colonization? We have an example, Nigeria. Very important country. 110 million people strong. Powerful land, variety in climate. Nigeria has everything to win as a black country. When Nigeria was becoming, and the crackers really didn't want to give Nigeria up. They did not. Because Nigeria was too much wealth, too much of everything. And it had a very dynamic personality, the people of Nigeria. Well, when you read the Constitution of Nigeria, you can hardly tell this is a black nation. But furthermore, the accompanying agreements, Nigerians agreed to live in the hands of England. The educational system, the justice system, the finance system, and the resources. So here we are independent. Here's how it went in Nigeria. We're independent. Hooray! Independence! Wonderful. But England will determine what you do as far as education is concerned, will determine how money is spent and for what, will determine how resources are used, and will determine justice.
Professor Small, why do you think there's anti-African terrorism being practiced against the African people?
4 years. Anti-African terrorists. And that's really what we've been going through. There's an anti-African terrorism. That is what is being practiced against the African world population. Remember, Africa has a value system. Africa has a culture. Africa has a way of life. Africa has a worldview. And in most cases, it runs contrary to everything European. And so this anti-African terrorism is to make sure that the African culture, the African value system, the African worldview does not come into play as one of the tools that inform, instructs, and help to encourage the growth of any new generations. And so when we think it's just because of our skin, no. Matter of fact, our skin is the least of why they do what they do to us. It is because of our minds. It is because of our historical experiences that will produce a possibility that will challenge anything they consider to be their best.
But listen to Captain Ibrahim Traore as he explained what his government is doing to restore human dignity in Africa and to the people of Burkina Faso.
We are fighting so that closed schools can reopen so that children can go to school. Isn't the right to education a human right? Who is fighting for us? Who is helping us? The same people who cry out every day about human rights, none of them have given us a single cartridge to fight against the terrorism that kills our children, to fight against the terrorism that closes our schools, that destroys our schools. That means the terrorists are fighting against human rights, we are fighting for human rights, and they are the ones encouraging the terrorists. Who is fighting against human rights? They're the ones saying it. And I'm going to talk to you right now about some things happening in Europe and elsewhere. But it's over there that they're fighting against human rights. Otherwise, here, human rights exist. And remember something, human rights come from Africa. They don't come from anywhere else. They come from Africa and from West Africa, here. The first charters that spoke about human rights were here in the AIS Confederation, more specifically in Mali. So, human rights were known by Africans. We were well organized, a well-structured society. Everyone had their rights, even women's rights. It was in Africa that women's rights existed. Elsewhere, they didn't exist. And it's those people who want to talk to us about women's rights or human rights. They don't know any rights at all. Who talks about human rights? Who has a habit of bombing children? Who is bombing children everywhere, dropping bombs indiscriminately, killing children and so on? Is that what they call human rights? That's not what we do. We fight for the lives of our people. We protect them. Our soldiers die to protect them. We do everything to open our schools, to educate them. We do everything to subsidize our farmers to develop agriculture so that people can eat their fill. We do everything to dig wells so that people have access to clean drinking water. Who is fighting against human rights? It's them.
Let's listen to Mr. Kunle Olawumi on what he will say about the Nigerian state. Sir, who do you think is the deep state in Nigeria? In Nigeria? In Nigeria?
To Norway, I say we want to go and dig for crude oil in Norway. We cannot go to the North Sea and say we want to take crude oil from North Sea, but they are here destroying the environment, and causing terrorist actions, terrorism, war, division, and taking the resources. We should see beyond the veil. Why can't we see beyond the veil? What is disturbing for me? So AU and others need to be reformed. They need to perform their roles, and they should not allow the foreign powers to keep on dividing them. When I was younger, we only know Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo. Okay? That doesn't mean that others don't exist. But today, I started hearing Hausa Fulani. Then after some time, we only hear Fulanis. And it's like Nigeria has been colonized by the Fulanis right now. No doubt about that. We were colonized by the Arabs. We were colonized by the British. We regained our independence. And now we have been colonized again by the Fulanis. In the political sphere, economic sphere, even social sphere. Because we are having some parts of this country now that is run by Sharia law. This country cannot be restructured because the cancer has eaten so deep. We allow the cancer to eat so deep that I think we've gotten to a point of no return. It's just a matter of time that there will be conflagration, because I know deeply that the Yoruba nations are ready to go. And I know that the Igbos long times are ready to go their way. And you now want to sit down and say we should restructure when all the powers, all the political powers in this country is in the hands of the Fulanis. If you want to win an election in this country, you must go to them. Even when Tinubu is there right now, it's a Yoruba man, he's there. But he's not controlling the state. That's why people will come out and say that people should go and appease Boko Haram, and they are still in government. So, the deep state in Nigeria are the Fulanis. They are enshrined and they are actually controlling, the state of affairs. And restructuring Nigeria is not going to be in their interest. They're not going to allow it to happen. What do you do with the Constitution? Are you going to tear the paper? As long as that Constitution is there, you can never restructure this country. And the people that are supposed to do it are in the legislative arms of the government. Majority are from the north. Majority are Fulanis. They're not going to allow you to reform the system, because when you do, they're going to be out of power. So